last year of high school when suddenly the college admissions trial started coming up, one of the most important and defining parts of your future. This was the moment when you needed to choose the school you would study and to work in your passions in the future. This decision needed to be made carefully, as it would determine your work productivity, happiness, and self-fulfillment. So I started wandering around diverse paths I would have liked to take on my future. Fashion design was the main piece of the puzzle. However, my dad did not approve much of the idea. So I started looking into other fashion marketing and decided I would study marketing to later on apply this title into the fashion market. This was not an easy path, as the admission adventure started to call me in. This, however, was a few months late, so almost every college had already done their admission process. I was left with Tecnológico de Monterrey, who unfortunately had their second admission group coming up. But looking into the whole process, I started doubting my abilities to complete all the required tasks in order to have my file complete. I knew I never had a good history with math, which gave me a lot of insecurities in this process. I was well aware the exam had half math and half Spanish, but just hearing about mathematics gave me anxiety. However, I fell in contact with a student in the last semester at the same college, who also happened to give counseling and classes to ace the admission exam with enough knowledge to be admitted into the dreamt Tecnológico de Monterrey. I spent about 8 months preparing class after class and math problem after math problem in order to understand the whole process I was about to face in the admission room. I never felt prepared. I kept delaying the process as long as I had because I knew this was about to be my hardest challenge yet. After facing once, the fear consumed me. Just the thought of not being good or smart enough started to get into my brain. Every class I had with this girl, I started doubting my problem-solving ability, as I had done about 200 math exercises and I still managed to find the wrong answer and the wrong thinking for this. Every day I kept an uneasy attitude. I kept spending 7 hours of my everyday and 12 hours of my weekends. I stopped talking to friends, spending time with family, and missing all the incredible adventures that would go on. I started feeling left behind, but I was so consuming the feeling of not being good enough, it didn't matter not talking to anyone. I had my priorities set straight, and I would not rest until I achieved my goals. This took me on a long journey where my family would no longer have contact with me anymore, just enough to say hello. I started skipping lunch because every second I could take to study mattered so much. I felt like it would determine a cause and effect on my final result, so the stress was more and more consuming every time. After failing the second exam, I knew I had no other choice but to give it my all in my last opportunity to be admitted, so this took me on a long journey of trials to give it my best, as this college had a maximum of 3 chances before you were denied admission for the next months. Of course, I was not cool about not having a college to go to, so I started working up myself even more. If I didn't go out already, now I would spend from 10 to 9 p.m. on the desk practicing math problems over and over again until I finally understood the logic of problem solving. Before I even knew, I was swimming in what would be about 600 pages of math problems just for one exam. My determination was set straight and I was not about to give up just yet. I started doubling up my classes and leaving behind my high school subjects in order to maintain a main focus on this admission process, where I encountered great difficulty in studying for my high school finals and my admission exam, which was breathing right behind my neck because they had the last exam dates available. Now I had no spare time to prepare, no excuses this time. It was all or nothing. I had a few talks with my mother about this whole process, the anxiety, the stress, the feeling of not being good enough, all of these feelings that were consuming me and taking me into a road I thought I wasn't good enough for. She consoled me and started to give me a lot of advice on how to take on this journey without wearing myself out before the exam. I listened and listened, but it took weeks for me to finally understand where she was coming from, because even if I talked to somebody, I needed to be perfect. I did not need pity or advice that would contribute and feed all these negative thoughts. But one day, I sat and actually opened my heart and mind into what my mother was trying to communicate with me. And I realized it was not so bad after all. I still had her support even if I failed my last chance. Of course, there was pressure on me after most of my family had gone into this college. It was almost like tradition to be part of the tech family. But her support showed me more than just achievements. All the deep talks helped me achieve peace of mind and look into relaxing sources to reduce stress and stop overworking myself every day for something that would not determine my intellectual or family tradition, as love and support would always be a priority in this family. However, my sister came on board just as soon as I started feeling more secure about myself and my problem-solving abilities. I had finally found ways to overcome stress and have self-fulfillment without drowning in practice tests and problems. I started feeling able to complete the admission process. But soon after, my sister started noticing this feeling and crushed it with sentences that would poison my critical thinking. She started talking down on my capacity of achieving my goals, started making fun of me my 2 failed admission exams, and released comments like I would be the first one in the family to not be a part of this college. So I started doubting once again about everything, my abilities, knowledge, and problem solving that would have later on bring me back past memories of exams that I had been unable to complete. The feeling of being in a complete blank mind as soon as I was handed in the exam was something I had forgotten about until my insecurities started to come back once again. I started falling behind in my high school subjects and working so hard for. Everything seemed hopeless. I was focused on the things I had missed. Almost 1 year of preparation and I still would not pass was another level of self-disappointment. The complete realization that I should have focused my energy on preparing fully on my final exams and not on the admission process was something that tormented my mind every day. I started thinking, now I really need to achieve this or nothing else is the hard work. I started tormenting myself with not being deserving of things until I was completely admitted into college and putting a lot of effort into studying once again, practice after practice and pulling all-nighters until I had everything completely memorized. Then again, I started to come back to earth and thinking to myself, why am I going through all this trouble? Why is it so easy for everyone else? So I started prioritizing my mental health. Of course, I heard my peers have been admitted, but I was focused on relaxing. Of course, working hard, but not overworking myself anymore. I started getting tired of the feeling of not being good enough, so I started appreciating the effort I had put into the whole process, falling in love with it, not stressing, just enjoying what I had left. Because of this, I started to enjoy once again my last year of high school. I had learned to be grateful for the opportunities I had, and I no longer had the vision of my world crumbling up entirely because of one exam that would not define me as a person. I sought help and fell in love with the whole process. I started going out with my family and friends and no longer felt the need to limit myself into deserving things. This got me on the right track for my finals. I started focusing my energy into other projects and saw studying as a hobby I simply enjoyed. I practiced mathematics so much I had started to enjoy problem solving and was excited to do anything related to it. So I started looking forward towards my exams and my admission process. After waiting a few months, it was finally time for my last chance to get the admission I so desperately wanted. But now I just focus on enjoying the exam. This had great rewards because it kept me focused and entertained, far different from my first 2 experiences with this process. After the exam finished, I felt satisfied with myself and left with the feeling I had left all I knew right there. After waiting a few weeks, the exam results came in, and as a positive consequence of reducing stress, I got the news I had been admitted and was finally part of the tech family. Noticing my hard work had finally been rewarded. Now that I had finally achieved my goal, the excitement and accomplishment started filling up my body with so much joy. Now I had learned the importance of falling in love with the process and not overworking it because this just backfires. I was excited to go on the next college step, initial courses, that would help me manage my knowledge in time for my first university day. So I started focusing my college goals instead of enjoying what I had left of high school. However, when I first started my college semester, I was falling into another loophole, a mathematics subject I still did not understand. My body filled up with stress and anxiety once again. I was feeling overwhelmed with the fast pace the subjects were going by. Now, I had only 4 weeks to understand everything and demonstrate this knowledge on the 5th week. I soon realized I needed to seek help immediately so I could pass the subject without overworking myself too much with stress. So I had extra classes from my teacher who helped me go step by step and understand the logic in problem solving that I needed to have in order to ace my exam. I was falling into my old habits, pulling all-nighters to study, but the help I got helped me through the challenges I was currently facing and set my mind back on the process of trusting myself with the information I had studied. Because if I learned one thing was that keeping calm and believing in yourself had more value than anything else. Forget about comparing progress with others, stressing about subjects for the exam, pulling all-nighters. Everything I needed to have a balance. Learning to live with it would be the key to college success. Now, whenever I started feeling stressed, I would remind myself all I needed to do was breathe, take a break, and trust myself so I would not go into a constant loophole filled with anxiety and fear of not being able to get through the challenges I'd be facing on this journey. Every now and then, I find myself in a vulnerable position where the thoughts of not being a fast learning come and go. But in the 2nd semester, I have mastered the feeling, and now I won't find myself anymore in the black hole I was in when the admission process started. Prioritizing mental health and well-being has started to be the key to good grades and retaining information. Finally, I can now choose the path I find myself in and change the mood with just a few breathing exercises, so I know everything is going to work out, and even if it doesn't, I won't find myself in a position where I feel like I'm not good enough.